Priscilla Kandel, here to share my love of the arts with you. For years, I've taught piano, sung at theme parks and special events, composed music for children, and produced and performed in live shows, television, and films. On this show, I'll be sharing various artists and types of art. Welcome to The Arts and You.
My guest today has entertained millions of people as a writer of famous shows in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. He wrote for The Doogie Howser Show, The Red Fox Show, The Wayans, and for many stars that he's here to tell us about today. Meet Phil Kellard.
Hello, Priscilla. Good to see you. Nice to be here. Hello, everybody.
I know you're a writer, but you didn't start that way. You've come from a family of a lot of entertainers. Tell us about that, beginning with your grandfather.
Yes, my grandfather was on Broadway for many, many years, and he came out here to Los Angeles with my grandmother and the two boys, my father and my uncle, to do silent films.
Silent?
Yeah, he did Perils of Pauline series and all sorts of different things, but he did not like film. He wanted to go back to Broadway, and eventually they got a divorce, and my grandmother stayed out here with the two boys, and they went into the business out here when they grew up.
So your dad was in it?
Yeah, my dad was in it. He was a contract player over at 20th, and he did a few, I forget it, the Pigskin Parade and The Little Colonel with Shirley Temple and things. And he was also Gary Cooper's double for quite a few years.
Wow.
Then he got out of it. He went into the war. He married my mom, came back. Agent was gone, and he went into the aerospace.
But you were a kid. Did you realize what a big deal this was to see your father doing this?
Yeah, well, I didn't really. This was kind of before I was born, and you know, when I was born, he had come out of World War II, so he had kind of given up all that. But my uncle stayed in it, and he did a lot of movies and Fu Manchu series, and he was on the Lone Ranger television show for quite a while. And my aunt was in it, and so yeah, it was a kind of a big entertainment family. I mean, I remember coming downstairs and somebody was always doing something, you know, if I came
So your
down.
Aunt Iris, what did she do?
She was a star in Mexico films because on my mother's side it was Costa Rican, so Spanish on my mother's side. My father's Irish. So she did, and she was studied with Max Reinhardt on Broadway, and she was in Tarzan and the Leopard Women, the movies, and yeah, she was great. So it was a big kind of show business family, I guess you would say. And when I was a kid, my cousin would bring over, you know, Laurel and Hardy films and show them on a big sheet with a projector, and so that got me in, you know, to it all. You know, I just felt like that's kind of what I wanted to do, but didn't know. You know, we're all kind of knuckleheads until we get out of high school and college.
You did a little acting yourself then?
I did. I went to LA City College, and it was a pretty famous theater school. So I'd done a lot of plays, and we won the American College Theater Festival, actually, and with a play that we all wrote, which was called Gap in Generations, and we performed it at Pasadena Playhouse. We won the regionals there. We went and performed it at Ford's Theater, where Lincoln was shot in D.C., and we won the big trophy back there. Yeah, so I kind of wanted to do that. I got the bug, you know. I took a acting class in high school elective when I was a senior, and I did in plays. I did Inherit the Wind, and of course, you know, when you're a senior, you put the makeup on. It's just to be old. You just put a couple of lines in your head, and that was it. But you know, I felt like that is something I really wanted to do. So
well, there's a picture we have here of you in tights.
Oh yes, me and tights.
What was that?
It was hard
to get into
cute,
this. By the way,
was I cute there? Yeah. Yes, I did. You know, I did Shakespeare. I did a lot of different things, and I did some TV, and I did a couple of movies, but nothing big. I just never had that kind of desire to put myself out there as an actor. I was fairly good, but I think when I realized that I wanted to be a writer, we had a company called the Chamber Company, and we would perform everywhere, and we were performing up in San Francisco. And somebody came back to us after we finished the play, and we did Christmas Carol up there, and we did a lot of different plays. And they came backstage and said, listen, we have a theater in Los Angeles. Would you guys like to write your own play? And
So that's how you got into writing.
yeah, I did. Everybody, other people wanted to write it. And I didn't really want to write it, but I think this was in the early 70s, late 60s. So I could hold my drugs better than anybody else. It was San Francisco. I mean, it was, the summer of love and everything else. So everybody kind of slowly dropped out, and I decided, well, I'll do it. And I wrote a play that was successful here, and then they asked us to write another one, and I wrote another one. And so that's kind of, and I still got this, and I didn't have to act anymore. So were they comedy
or were they drama?
They were comedies, yeah.
They were all comedy.
They were all comedies. And I got people to come down and see them, like from Laugh In. And, I put out a lot of invitations so I could kind of start my career writing, And
so where did it go from there?
Well, from there, I started, I wrote game shows.
Game shows?
Yeah, I wrote questions, and I wrote different, funny things for game shows. And the first game show I did was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. It was called the Diamond Head Game, and it was in Oahu, and it was with Bob Eubanks, and it was outdoors. There wasn't enough hairspray in the world that could keep that wind from blowing Bob's hair all over the place. And it was just, we were out on the North Shore, so we didn't get people from Oahu to come out and be in the audience, so we'd have to get what we got. And, somebody would say surfs up, and the stands would just would be gone. But it was a terrible game show because you had to work your way through these outside islands in this kind of makeshift sea, and we didn't get the smartest contestants. The cream of the crop there, and we were writing pretty much kind of Jeopardy questions. So, we realized we had to dumb things down. Yeah, we had to dumb the questions down. I remember writing one question. It was, if you walk around the back of Mount Rushmore, what will you see? The back of the president's heads, their vice presidents, their wives.
Their wives?
Or the other side of the mountain. And their vice presidents? No, sorry. Their wife, no. So it was kind of that. And there was a wind machine. You'd have to work your way up to this wind machine, which was Diamond Head. And we'd blow all this money around, dollar bills. And I think there was a $500 bill and 1,000 and, Mercedes and things. And they'd have to get in there and then we'd start the wind machine. And they'd pick up, and put as much as they could in their pockets, and then we'd figure out what they got by the time they came out. But nobody realized that, our first winner that went in the wind machine was a lady with a dress.
Oh, no.
And the wind machine, It was like Marilyn Monroe in the 7-year itch, blew everything. So we had to, stop and, rain every 5 minutes, so we had to stop tape, and it was just those early days of television, which was exciting for me, but was crazy.
Well, they still do some of those wind machines.
I'm sure they do.
But they're in booths, so I don't think we're going to have any dress problems.
Well, we had to wait while the costumer would design a jumpsuit, so it took half the day to reshoot that in. But anyway, it was better. So game shows were the first thing I really kind of cut my teeth on. But there was a great game show at the time called Hollywood Squares, which I'm sure a lot of your audiences remember.
Show. Yeah, so many stars.
Yeah, it was great because they came on to plug things. They wouldn't get a lot of money for being on, but they would plug their movie, or it was like a talk show.
But all the comedy then that they came out with sounded like it was just coming naturally from them, but you're saying you wrote that.
Well, yes, me and a few other writers, and some great writers. I mean, Jay Reddick and Harry Friedman and Stan Drebin and my brother, and that's how I got the job. My brother had the job before I did, and he was leaving to go on and do bigger and better things, so I had to submit jokes and
Well, I know
questions.
you've got some samples, but we're going to take a little break right now,
Oh, all right,
and then
good.
we're going to come right back and hear more.
Great.
So don't go away.
I love to play with music. I love to sing a song.
Hi, I'm Priscilla Kandel, and I've been a voice teacher for years. Do you like to sing and wish you had better tone and diction? How about holding the notes longer or making those high notes feel easier? I've made a CD of basic vocal exercises as used in my private lessons. Now they can help you anywhere you go.
Stream at Amazon.com and other online stores.
Welcome back. We're here with comedy writer Phil Kellard, who's going to share with us some of the jokes he wrote for Hollywood Squares. Let's hear it.
Yeah, well, actually, I didn't write them. I mean, I wrote some of them. Other writers wrote others. There was, as it was, there was about 3 or 4 of us that wrote the jokes and the questions, and 5 writers that just wrote the questions. So we go through hundreds of questions and think up jokes for the different people. And Paul Lind, of course, was the star. He was the center square. But we wrote jokes for everybody, like Rosemarie, Charlie Weaver, Vincent Price, and all that. And we were nominated and won an Emmy the year before I got there. And then we were all nominated, and I was nominated for 4 Emmys on that show for the writing. But you know, some of the questions, people send me an email and they say, well, and they send these questions and jokes to me, and it's always like, this is when everything was spontaneous. Well, they had them written down. Oh. You know, they couldn't know the question because of the scandals of the 50s with the $64,000 question.
I remember
and all
that.
Yeah. So all they had was the joke. And they had to come up with the answer after they gave the joke, of course. But nobody knew that, you know, there was 3 or 4 of us that were writing these jokes. And I'll share some of them with you because they are pretty funny.
Well, may I ask, how did they know? Did they have it in their ear?
No, they had them written down.
Oh, they had them
so
written
they
down.
would look down, and you know, sometimes Paul Lind would look down and he'd see the joke for the first time after he heard the question. You could see him kind of laughing already before he delivered the joke, you know, and it was great. But here are some of them which I thought were kind of appropriate and funny for your audience. Peter Marshall would ask Paul, how many fingers in the Girl Scout salute? Paul would say, gee, I don't remember. The last time I saw it was when I didn't buy their cookies. Peter would say, Paul, does Ann Landers think there is anything wrong with you if you do your housework in the nude? Paul, no, but I have to be terribly careful when I do my ironing. Peter Marshall would say, what are the dual-purpose cattle good for that other cattle aren't? Oh, they give milk and cookies, but I don't recommend the cookies.
Oh my gosh.
Paul, why do Hell's Angels wear leather? Because chiffon wrinkles. Paul, what's the one thing you should never do in bed? Point and laugh. And of course, the real showstopper was, Paul, what is a good reason for pounding meat? Oh, loneliness. That got a huge laugh.
Oh
that
my gosh.
stopped the show in mid-show.
Oh
So
my gosh.
those were some of the, you know, but there were some great writers, like I say, that we all, you know, sat in a room and went through these questions and thought up jokes for hundreds and hundreds of questions, because that's what, you know, we'd go through in one taping. So it was.
So you had like a table full of writers.
Well, yeah, there was actually 4 of us in a room that would go through the questions, and then there was 5 writers downstairs that would write the questions.
How did you decide who had the best answer?
Well, we just, you know, we'd go through jokes. Sometimes they wouldn't work, you know, so we just pitch on different questions. So, and when we hit one, we knew that was the one. Yeah, that was the funny one.
Oh, well, can I ask you, what makes something funny when you're writing? What do you look for that turns the table into funny as opposed to serious?
Well, I think, there isn't really, you don't really write around jokes. You write to character in sitcoms. And in anything, really. I mean, character is what sells television shows. Movies are very plot-driven. Television is character. You fall in love with characters, you want to see these characters every week. So the characters really dictate the funny.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'd love to hear more about that, but right now we're going to take another break. We're going to be right back because we have some scenes from shows that he's written.
Oh, nice.
Come back.
It's the hip hop alphabet from A to Z.
Hi, I'm Priscilla Kandel, singer-songwriter of many children's songs. Give your children a head start in learning through music with my interactive songs about ABCs, numbers, bugs, birds, animals, international words and foods, as well as life. Sing, dance, and draw with songs that develop talents and brains.
Stream at Amazon.com and other online stores.
Welcome back. I have Phil Kellard here, and we're going to do some questions about his ways of writing comedy. What makes something funny, Phil?
Well, I don't think there's really a DNA for a joke or anything like that. And jokes are like the jokes that I was just talking about. You have a question and then a joke, which is very different than a sitcom kind of joke or funny. And to me, the characters dictate that. If you develop a character and you give them flaws and idiosyncrasies and how they behave, and you go very deep into character, the characters will pretty much dictate the funny. Because the drama of a half-hour comedy is the story. But the way the characters behave inside of that story is what makes them funny. Their individual personalities.
So it's their choreography, their facial expressions.
Well, you have to give them, like, let's say, this is the hard-ass boss who has a heart of gold, or Mary Tyler Moore, she's the ingenue who's a little bit naive. Those kind of characteristics give the character the ways they're going to make the story funny, how they're going to react and how they're going to talk, and that's how you really write them. If you develop characters deeply enough, they will just kind of dictate how they are funny inside of a comedy.
Is it different for stand-up comedy?
Yes, very different, because those are just jokes. Those are basically punchlines. Although a lot of comedians talk about their life and weave the funny into talking about a story in their life. But it's basically you're taking something. In a sitcom, the unrealistic stuff is the funny stuff, and what's not funny is the real. In drama, the stakes are very high. It's like, I'm worried that my neighbor has killed somebody. In comedy, the stakes are a little bit different. It's, I'm worried that my neighbor has a bigger satellite dish than I do. It's just exaggerated, and that's kind of the difference there, and that's the way you have to think as a comedy writer.
Quite often I always think that things that are true are funny.
Yes, you also always have to come from truth. Even in a big, broad kind of sitcom, it's always, they're exaggerating what we do in our life.
Yes, so if you told somebody you have a big nose, depending on the character,
right,
it could be funny.
Yes.
Or from another character, it could be an insult.
Yes, and cruelty is funny in a sitcom. Anything that's that way, you derail them. You give them the unexpected. It's that turn. It's that juxtaposition of stuff that make things funny.
Fascinating. We're going to talk some more about that, but we'll be right back. We have more to talk about with Phil Kellard. Welcome back again with Phil Kellard. I know, Phil, you've worked with some very big stars. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, I went from those game show days to variety. I did a lot of variety and basically buried that genre with a lot of great writers, just 6 feet under into the ground. Because you used to have a star that was a singer, and they had a variety show, and that was kind of...
I loved those shows.
Yeah, they were great. They were great. And I ended up doing a lot of that, and I worked with, I did the Perry Como Christmas specials, and I did Andy Williams Christmas specials, and I did a lot of variety, which I wrote the sketches, and the things that were inside of all those kind of wonderful shows back then.
Introductions as well as sketches.
Introductions, sketches, yeah. I mean, I think the first variety show I did was with Wolfman Jack. It was kind of, you remember the Midnight Special show and all that, and we did a lot of those things. I remember we one show we did, we had Nick Gilder and Chuck Berry on. It was great, and we did sketches, and we needed an orangutan for a sketch.
Oh my gosh.
So I was sitting in my office late at night writing the sketch, and all of a sudden this orangutan comes out and sits by my desk and hands me his picture and a resume. And, they thought that was a funny joke to send him in there, but it was... But, we fed the orangutan way too many bananas during the actual taping, and he just went up into the flies, and we never saw him again, so we could never do the sketch. I don't know, he might still be in that studio.
Oh my gosh.
But that was great. Those were great days. Those were great days. And doing those, Perry Como was great, wonderful to work with. And Angie, we did Perry Como Christmas in Paris, so I got to go to a lot of locations and work all over with just some wonderful, wonderful people.
Angie Dickinson, what did she do?
She sang. She sang in Pierre Cardin's showroom. She sang, and we had, I forget who else was on that show, but even in the Andy Williams Christmas special, we shot it in Vermont with available lighting, and Dorothy Hamill, the great skater, we went out to a very small lake that was iced over, and we had her skate on that to music, and it was fantastic. It was
wonderful experience.
It really was a great experience, yeah. So I got to travel New York and Paris and, Canada and do all these wonderful variety shows. And then I moved on to the sitcoms, which was, Red Fox was my first one, really.
Oh, we have a clip of this Red Fox show. It's very old, but we'd love to see it and hear more stories about Red Fox.
Great.
So watch this.
This is the big one.
Go ahead. Make my day.
All the warmth.
Why don't we sit on a rap?
Rap. I'll wrap you upside your head.
All the glamour.
Please, call me Rita. Your lips might be whispering Rita. Them size 13 shoes screaming Ralph.
All the passion.
Oh, squeeze me too tight. You cut the blood off to my foot.
Some things just get better and better.
Oh, yes.
The Red Fox Show premieres this Saturday, followed by Benson.
Red Fox was quite a character.
Oh, he was.
What were some of the funny experiences you had with him?
Well, Red was great. I mean, Red was pretty amazing. We put him in, Rick James wigs and, all sorts of things, and he was just there. He would hit those big, funny moments in that show, and Sinbad was on the show, and it was a terrific little show, and it was a little difficult to work with. I mean, when I remember one time we had 400 people in the audience, or because we taped multi-camera tape, and we were wondering where Red was when we were getting ready to go, because the audience had been warmed up, the warm-up man had done it, and there was no Red. And all of a sudden we get a call from an airplane, and he was on his way to Las Vegas.
Oh my gosh.
I'm on my way to Vegas. And so it cost us a bit of cash on that tape night and stuff. So he moved to his own beat, but Red was wonderful. I mean, he was a terrific, terrific guy. There are plenty of stories about Red, and his, tax problems and his drug issues. I think I could have chopped up the rug in his dressing room, and street value would have been amazing.
Really?
Yeah. But he was terrific.
How old was he when he did those shows?
I don't know, because he looked great. I remember him showing me pictures of him and Malcolm X. He had, when they were teenagers, you know. He had such a history, and his Vegas act was amazing. And
Yes.
you can't even repeat any joke he ever did for the days.
This has been such a pleasure talking to you, and thank you for being my guest.